Hey, everybody, and welcome to The Crunch. It's Rebecca here with Patrick. Say hi. Yeah, boy. Welcome, everybody, to almost April. Can you believe the quarter is almost over already? It's crazy. It's been a busy time for us. I'm sure a busy time for you. And certainly the announcements keep coming fast and furious around AI and autonomous AI and agentic AI. We'll be in New York next week for Oracle's AI event. And certainly, whether it was Phenom a few weeks ago or the wonderful IRL event with Brent and Paul and everybody, all the rest of the crew down in Atlanta a few weeks ago, we've been hitting 2026 fast and furious and continuing now as we go into almost Q2. But one of the things that we've been thinking about a lot, right, Pete? Yeah, is how do we get beyond this sort of initial adoption phase with AI to really taking advantage of what the exponential, the linear capabilities are in terms of delivering value for the organization. And I think one thing that all of us who have worked with some of the AI tools have found is that it's not about just automating those processes that we have. It's really about changing the way we think about those processes, those relationships, and really our ability to take advantage of AI to work in different ways. And so I've been reading this really, really interesting book by a dear friend of mine, and I'm delighted to have him on the show today to talk with us about his new book and how he's kind of leading the charge and helping people think differently about the way that work gets done. So I'd like to welcome now Vala Afshar, evangelist from Salesforce and author of the book Autonomous, which is a great read. I recommend everybody pick it up. Vala, thank you for being with us.
Rebecca, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for your kind words, and I'm delighted to know that you know about Autonomous. So I'm grateful to be here.
You can find it on Amazon, where I get personalized recommendations where your name pops up. That whole personalization at scale, right?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I wrote the book Boundless in 2023. Mm-hmm. Trying to focus on the negative impact of silos. I'm an immigrant refugee, and I don't speak on behalf of all immigrants, and certainly not all refugees, but most of my life I had a silo mentality, capturing resources, protecting those resources, and trying to extract value from those resources. With my parents, it was never an option. You're going to go to school, you're going to get graduate school, get a good degree, get a good job, get a good title, budget, headcount, authority. And I realized that, silos can be super detrimental when you're talking about an algorithmic economy powered by AI. Data silos are really a challenge for businesses as they're going through their transformation. And once Boundless was published in 2023, there was certainly a realization that there's a whole level of boundlessness when you're talking about agentic AI and digital labor. It's beyond just human intellect and capacity and reach, and so that's what led to Autonomous, which came out last year, and it's, I think, the most important technological advancements of my career, perhaps my lifetime. So I have a high sense of urgency when it comes to this topic.
Yeah, the silos thing is really interesting because I think you probably saw we just published on the cost of disconnected CX. Found that 87% of CX leaders believe that sort of customer 360 is unattainable, and that data integration is the biggest hurdle for AI.
It really is.
How are you thinking about helping customers understand sort of where they even start in trying to break down silos within their organization?
That's a wonderful question, and I think it's perhaps the most highest priority challenge for business leaders, including CIOs and technology leaders in business. When you look at where we're focusing our time and attention at my company, at Salesforce, if you simply watched our acquisition strategy and where we're spending our not just organic but inorganic, our biggest, most important investments have been in the data space.
Informatica, obviously, and MuleSoft.
Certainly evidenced by the Informatica acquisition and the data management, data cataloging, and the fact that when you're thinking of building your agentic enterprise capabilities, foundational to it, at the base of this is your data strategy, your data foundation strategy. And for us, it's a combination of Data 360, which was an organic initiative, thousands of engineers for literally 3 to 4 years working to expand how we use protocols like customer data, a platform that's typically sat in marketing, expanding it to the entire enterprise. A MuleSoft acquisition that allowed us to, again, gracefully integrate systems, the Informatica, semantic search, all these things that allows us to create what we call a system of context. And that's allowing the language models and all of this other capabilities we have to be foundational to it. And when you recognize that a business like the size of ours, on average, has about 1,000 software applications. The number, I think, specifically based on the 2026 MuleSoft annual connected benchmark report, states there are about 1,056 software applications, and only 28% of those applications are integrated. So when you're talking about a 360 single pane of glass view of your customers and your partners, there's a recognition that 70% of these applications are living in silos.
Yeah.
And silos is not just trapped data. When you have trapped data, you, in a sense, have trapped value. Your ability to deliver value at the speed of need is hindered by the fact that these applications are not sharing those aha moments of truth that you glean from your customers and your partners, the signals that come into your business, whether it's your call center or your marketing campaigns or your sales pipeline. All these signals that are coming in and out of your business are lost inside of your business. And this is the beauty of agentic AI and becoming autonomous, because I'm in San Francisco. And I in the middle of any street in San Francisco, I can count to 10 slowly. 1, 2, 3. By the time I get to 10, I see a Waymo go by. Last year, Waymo surpassed Lyft drivers in terms of number of rides. 44,000 Lyft drivers, only 600 Waymos. It's just to give you a sense of the productivity gains of an autonomous vehicle that's constantly in motion. When I look at this retrofitted Jaguar, which is all a Waymo is, I've got LiDAR that's sending millions of pulses every second to detect objects, distance and size and motion. I've got radar that does better job in rain and snow and sleet, sending millimeter wave frequency every second to, again, detect object size and distance and motion. I've got high precision cameras. You can have as many as 16 high precision cameras on a Waymo. The Waymo has ears. It's called extended audio receivers. So if I hear sound of an ambulance or a police vehicle behind me, I know to slow down and move to the right. All these disparate data sources, lasers and sound and precision photography and millimeter wave frequency through radar, all being captured in real time. And the car, when in front of you, slows down, the Waymo slows down. The car stops, you stop. In real time, this autonomous system can sense, understand, decide, and act. It's called SUDA, the operating system of autonomous vehicles, mirrors what the military developed decades ago called the SUDA operating system, and it does in real time. At Salesforce today, we have 254 agents. 254 agents that are active at Salesforce. These agents, this intelligent system of software, can sense and understand and decide and act in real time. And that really changes the nature of the importance of not having silos, the importance of being able to access data in real time. Because ultimately, when I look at a Waymo or an Amazon Zoox, you see the Zoox in the streets of San Francisco, you see Cybercab from Tesla. And I tell you, a ride in a Waymo is scary because, and I'm an engineer, I'm a double E, I build technology. But to be honest with you, when you're in a car and it drives itself, there's a little bit of uneasiness to it.
Sure.
But when you get into a Cybercab or a Zoox, it's even scarier because those are AI first design. Like when you get into a Cybercab and Zoox, the first thing you notice, there's no steering wheel. There's no gas or brake pedal. There's no mirror, safety mirror.
Yeah.
All human user interfaces have been removed. And that reminds you of and by the way, the Cybercab with Tesla is projected to be $30,000 per Cybercab. The cost of a Waymo is somewhere between $150,000 to $200,000. So the units
It's
of
down that much already. Yeah.
It's and when you when you're, for example, at a Salesforce event and people show you like they're engaging with the entire CRM platform through Slackbot, you realize companies are removing steering wheels and gas and brake pedals. There's no more static portals. There's no more dashboards across multiple lines of business. There isn't a web interface. You literally talk to a Slack or you text it, and all of that system of engagement is narrowed to what we're comfortable with, a multimodal conversational UI. So much of what we're watching in the physical space, like autonomous vehicles, autonomous humanoid robots, even glasses. I've got Agentforce built on my Ray-Ban smart glass. I can literally open up call center cases, lead score my marketing campaigns, look at my sales opportunities by just talking to the glass and getting responses. It's our first, I think, wearable agent. I was just at a chemical manufacturing company, the largest in the world, and they send their scientists to look at farmland, look at corn and wheat, and the fact that an engineer at this chemical company can take a picture of the crop and then compare the picture of the crop to a classifier with all other photos of crops at different maturity levels. Mm-hmm. This is 30-day growth, this is 90-day growth, and immediately tell the scientist that you're not maybe progressing as well, and then recommend different chemistry to help improve yield, and do that hands-free while you're in the field. This whole world of autonomy is going to be super exciting, and it's going to radically change how we do work.
You know, you make a really interesting point in the book about digital labor versus digital tools and sort of moving from assistive to really autonomous. Can you talk a little bit more about your thinking around that and how customers sort of have to make the leap from thinking about AI as a tool to more broadly digital labor in that context?
And the reason that agentic AI to me feels like electricity for the 21st century is I think of the life of Salesforce. You know, we were born March 8th, 1999, just celebrated our 27-year anniversary. And, you know, we started on our AI journey in 2014. You know, we launched the research team. We made our first acquisition, our first set of patents. We've got now north of 500 patents. So we've been on a journey for 12 years, specifically AI journey. But when I think of the life of the company, and you know it more than anyone, I mean, you're the OG when it comes to literally the first few analysts in the world that covered the return on investment on SaaS, and you really put us on the map based on your research. When I think of the 27 years, I think the last 24 years, we were building software that we provided to humans, and the humans were responsible for using the software to get the best outcomes. So it was really developing a tool set that the human labor force can use. When I think of the last 2 years, we're no longer building software that humans can use to produce beautiful outcomes. The software has reasoning capability. The software can be implemented in complex workflow, and the software can unsupervised take action on your behalf. Now, there is a very composable, precise manner in which you onboard this incredible software. We call it agents or Agentforce, because it's highly composable and precise, meaning you start with a job. Any job is a series of tasks. With each task, you have to identify the instruction set you need to execute that task. So you define tasks, which translate to instructions, and then actions that you feel comfortable allowing the agent to take on your behalf, and then also actions you never want the agent to take unsupervised. We call those guardrails. And then the channels you want to operate. So jobs, tasks, actions, guardrails, channels. And there's an entire system of trust that enables you to create that framework. When you have this highly composable, highly structured approach of onboarding digital labor, I call it digital in the book, my definition of autonomous is you have digital labor. If you don't have digital labor, you're not really an autonomous entity, because digital labor implies you can take certain set of tasks and delegate it to software instead of your human labor, and be just like when you're in an autonomous vehicle. The driving function was now delegated to a system of hardware and software. And there are incredible benefits that I've watched my company go in the last 2 years of onboarding agents, because it's highly composable, because it's highly precise, where we as business operators are now really operating like surgeons. The level of precision is incredible, unlike any time I've experienced at work. The byproduct of that level of thinking and composability, first and foremost, is we're able to identify waste. There's a lot of waste that happens in business. Our research shows most of the time our sellers are actually selling. It's about 28% of the time.
Yeah.
72% of the time, sellers are not educating, inspiring, igniting action. They're doing stuff in preparation for that moment of actually being a trusted advisor. We find in our research, only 17% of marketing qualified leads actually become sales qualified leads. Literally 80% of marketing qualified leads disappear. So anyway, there's a lot of waste in business, and no one would argue that all waste is costly, but not all costs are wasteful. Often when companies are pursuing better EBITDA, better margin, better return on investment, and in pursuit of productivity and efficiency, what you typically find, and I used to be that person, that executive that had a big budget, and then I would get a directive from the board or my CEO, Vala, you need to take 10% out of the business. You got to be more efficient. What I would do is I would look at my highest cost items, and then I would apply a filter and due diligence on what is the highest cost in our business. So I would approach this efficiency journey by cost cutting, looking at my most expensive line items, only to realize sometimes I would take cost out of the business, and now I have value atrophy, because that cost was actually delivering value to my stakeholders.
Yeah.
When I find Salesforce in the last 2 years, I think we're like in waste management business now. We look at things that we consider wasteful. And what is waste? I have a simple definition. If you're assigning a wrong resource to a task, that's wasteful. If you're overutilizing a resource, if you're underutilizing a resource, it's really about resource management. And when we bring agents on board, we often look at, is this a low value, highly repetitive task? The thing that makes you feel yucky on Sunday, because knowing Monday is coming about and I'm going to go to work and I'm going to have to push a button, or I'm going to have to do the same thing I've done, and in a blink of an eye, it could be your career. That you've done low value, repetitive, highly deterministic work that frankly should not be given to the men and women that have incredible talent that you've recruited into your amazing company. So part of this rethinking and part of this autonomous journey is recognizing that performance is not really technology based, it's relationship based. If you want to have a high performing team or a high performing company, or let's bring it down to just the unit of one, a high performing person, the most important factor is relationships. In fact, the longest study on what's the biggest driver of happiness and health was done by Harvard University. It was an 87-year study where they followed 1,000 men and women, Harvard did, for over 8 decades, to identify who are the healthiest, happiest people. And it wasn't fame or fortune. The number one factor for the folks that over 8 decades were the happiest, healthiest, lived the longest, had incredible careers, was based on the quality of their relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm reminded I work for a CRM company, and the R in CRM is relationships. And the more I think about a hybrid work environment, the more I think about the nature of companies becoming autonomous, which is a hybrid workforce, humans and AI agents, the more I realize that relationships are going to be the most important success factor for companies that go through this journey. And I live that at my company. Think about the messy beginning we had when we launched our first few agents a couple of years ago, the messy middle we continue to I'm going to say struggle with. There's nothing easy about this journey. I just want people to understand it's the most transformative. It's electricity. I said the fittest business because the first sentence in the back of the book is, in the age of agentic AI, you're either building an autonomous business or you're part of a dying one. I mean, I truly believe that this is the most disruptive technology. And I remind myself, 52% of Fortune 500 companies have disappeared since year 2000. So the biggest revenue companies in the world in the last 25 years, 1 and 2 are gone. And I think it's 71% of Fortune 1000. And I think that disruptive curve is going to be even more when it comes to agentic AI. But when I think about my own company's experience in the last 2 years, I got to tell you, and these are the R's that I think about. We've had to redesign. We've had to redesign processes. So the first R, redesign processes. We've had to redeploy people. Our help.salesforce.com was manned by a couple of thousand men and women. We brought agents on board late 2024. In 6 months, we had like 70% first contact closure, compared to like the lifetime of Salesforce. I think we're achieving at 61% first contact closure. So we're never going back. So there was a redeployment of those men and women. You may already know we've added 20% to our distribution function without adding 20% to our headcount. Mm-hmm. So deployment. So redesign our processes, first R. Redeploy the talent, second R. We had to reskill those folks that we were redeploying. Some of these folks became forward deployment engineers. Some of these folks became sales professionals, BDRs, SDRs. So there's a whole reskilling, the third R. We had to rebalance our budgets. Like we had senior executives in room where we're moving men and women around, which means we have to really rebalance our budgets. And I got to tell you, if you don't have a culture with small ego, who wants to give up their budget? Like who wants to shrink or expand? So there's so much relationship culture element with the reskilling, rebalancing, redesigning. And the other R's that come to mind is we have this, what I call reclamation of value. There were things we ignored in the past because the economics wouldn't allow us to pursue. Like, for example, our executive, Jim Roth, who runs our customer success, when he realized agents can now provide 77% resolution on our help.salesforce.com, which gets millions of visitors a year. It's our most popular user interface to our clients. He realized he now could reclaim latent value, things we ignored in the past, like multi-language support. We were able to expand to 8 new languages because we could now free up our staff to go and add value to places we ignored.
The reclamation of value is such an interesting area, but you make a really important point that I want to make sure that we at least talk about for a second before we wrap up. The idea of really to take advantage of the potential value of AI, you have to be chefs versus cooks. Talk about that and kind of now.
Rebecca, you read my book. You read it. If you're asking that question, you read it. Awesome.
I always joke with my mom because she's like, I always cook from a recipe, and you just kind of go in the kitchen and make stuff up. And I'm not sure kind of where I got that from, but I think at least in the kitchen, I fall into the somewhere between the chef and the cook category. But what do you see as the biggest hurdle for the average organization? Not that there's any such thing as average, to moving from that kind of cook to chef mindset, because a lot of us have taught to be good cooks for a long time.
Oh yeah,
Intended to be good cooks for a long time.
Yeah. I considered myself to be a good. So I'm an electrical engineer, which meant that I was schooled to be able to interpret a functional spec, and according to that functional spec, build a product. I started my career as a software developer, and that's what I would do. Somebody would give me a functional spec from product marketing, product management, and I would build to that spec. And if you're a good engineer and you have good, decent spec, you can follow the recipe and create something delicious. And often when you're trying to be, when you're a cook, you're learning by analogy. You go through an apprenticeship, you watch somebody mix ingredients from a recipe and you follow. The problem with me was that I recognized that if you took the recipe away from me, I don't think I could build you consistently a delicious meal. Because unlike a chef who learns by first principles, a chef tastes each ingredient. A chef is always mixing ingredients. A chef experiments. By the way, if you know the outcome, then it's not an experiment. So chefs often experiment not knowing the combination of the ingredients. It could be yucky, it could be delicious. But the chef is always challenging their own assumptions. They know that the failing is part of the learning process. They suit up and they get in the game. So when I think of, I've been with Salesforce almost 11 years now. When I think of new ingredients that have really been adopted in business over the last decade, obviously public cloud, social networking, mobile technologies, Internet of Things. When I think about emerging quantum computing, immersive technology like augmented virtual reality, distributed ledgers and blockchain, 3D printing. Look at the 13 sciences under this thing we call AI, machine learning, neural networks, computer visioning, smart natural language processing. What if you were in business in the last decade following recipes and you miss these new ingredients? Like when I'm in front of an executive and they say, how do I get comfortable with AI? I show them my phone and I say, look, I've got Claude, ChatGPT, Grammarly, Notebook LM, Perplexity, Grok, Sora, Gemini, Agentforce, Slackbot. I'm like, are you having 1,000 conversations with language models on a quarterly basis? Do you understand the different temperament and characteristics of these language models? They really do behave differently. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And only if you operate like a chef do you really understand the powerful nature of these new ingredients that our technologists are giving birth to. So I think that we all need, as business leaders, operate like chefs, not cooks. And sometimes that means taking that recipe that you've been building towards for decades and literally throwing it away. It's almost like I feel like in business, we're all like conductors, especially when you're a leader of a line of business or you've got people and technology responsibility. There's a train conductor, and his job is to take people from one station to another safely. Important job. And then I think about an orchestra conductor, where the instruments change often, the music change, the song change, the players. And I think in this world of converged uncertainty with future of work and emerging technology and new business models and all that, you really have to think about how much of your time in business you're a train conductor, where the tracks have already been built, the stations have already built, and you're just kind of moving people along, versus an orchestra conductor. So not only I think you need to operate like a chef, first principle learning versus learning by analogy, I also think that you need to inventory what you do repetitively and consistently. And if you find yourself doing the same thing majority of time, it's unlikely that you're keeping up with the innovation velocity, the speed and direction of innovation. And that can really put yourself, your team, and your company at a disadvantage.
I love that. Converged uncertainty. That'll be our touch word for our catchphrase for April. We've just got a few minutes left, so it's crunch time.
Okay.
Patrick always
It's like
wakes
I'm in crunch. When I speak with you, I feel like I'm in crunch time all the time.
So this is the time, crunch time, when the questions that Patrick has selected get posed to you. We've just got a few minutes left, so we won't do too many. You ready?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome.
So, what is your most overused word or phrase?
Oh, my most overused.
You can't say conversion uncertainty.
I can't say converge. The word that I come to mind right now, it's not overused, but I think about it a lot, is this delicious paradox that exists. Because when people think autonomy, they think, you're free, you're less connected, and it's complete opposite. In order to become an autonomous business, you have to be deeply connected to your environment. You have to think about integration deeply. You have to think about distribution of value deeply. You have to think about mobility and continuity. So the delicious paradox is, most people, when they think about autonomous machines or factories, or what I believe will be the next 10 years, autonomous companies, they feel like it's separation, it's freedom, it's unilateral decision making, and it's complete opposite. In order to gain autonomy,
completely relational, it's completely connected.
it is completely connected at a multidimensional. So there's a delicious paradox in terms of how people think about autonomy.
I don't know. I think delicious paradox might be a better catchphrase for April, but I love that. Vala, personally, what is your greatest extravagance?
Rebecca, I have 3 children, and I married up, which means that all of their greatest qualities come from their mom. And when I catch myself watching them in action, one of them graduated from university and is working, one is a sophomore in university, and one is a sophomore in high school. But all 3 of them, there are times where I watch them in action and I realize the greatest gift is knowing your children are good people, and they're competent, and they're caring. And so I feel the most extravagance, the most pride, the most joy, the most feeling of not only just belonging to a society, but actually my work did matter. Because even though I give myself a tiny fraction of credit, they are the greatest example of I think I'm living a recommendable life. So yeah, I don't know if I'm answering you accurately, but when I think about extravagance, I think about how lucky I am. And
Ed agrees, and I think that's a great place to leave it today. Vala, thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it. And thanks for everybody that joined, and we'll see you next week.